After last year's misfire with Spider-Man Friend or Foe, Activision went back to the drawing board in hopes of reviving the web-slinging franchise. With no new films to draw material from, the gurus at Marvel devised a new concept and turned to a new development studio. The result is Web of Shadows, a sandbox action-adventure that allows players to take Spider-Man down the path of righteousness or be consumed by darkness. But is this web tangled?
You won't regret this, I swear.
The Big Apple is once again being terrorized by crime and supervillains, and only Spider-Man and a handful of allies can stand up to their dastardly aspirations. At the heart of the conflict lies Venom, who is hell-bent on destroying Spider-Man and all of New York City. Venom is secretly infecting ordinary citizens with his symbiote, turning them into deranged creatures. Amidst the carnage, Spider-Man must also deal with his internal struggle, as ultimately, his decisions could lead to the salvation of the city, or its complete annihilation. It's a very complex story, but it's too convoluted for its own good. There are just too many heroes and villains to follow. The main plot fails to develop until near the end of the game, and the earlier portions are little more than filler. The narrative is poorly developed, and it's almost like they tried to squeeze too much into too little time. Once the main story unfolds, it's rather intriguing choosing which moral path to take, but it takes far too long to get there.
Freeze! Back away from those people now, mister!
Hey! These lunatics attacked me! They're obviously not normal human beings!
As Peter Parker, the web-slinging, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, players will tackle hordes of gang members, robots, and supervillains. The structure of the game follows a typical action-adventure formula, but it strives to replicate a sandbox experience, allowing players to swing around a sprawling metropolis, doing whatever they please. Just like all the past Spider-Man games, you have to seek out characters around the city to obtain new missions. The catch is that there's just one quest giver at a time. You're given primary objectives to advance the game's plot, or you can stray from the main path. Many of the optional missions are remedial, but at least some of them serve as additional practice for newly acquired special abilities. The mission variety is simply lacking. The early boss fights are undoubtedly the highlight of the game, particularly the dynamic tangles with Black Cat and Vulture. But eventually, even this ray of light is blotted out when Spider-Man takes on Wolverine. The two slug it out only for the clawed mutant to begin asking random Marvel trivia.
Who declined joining the new Avengers?
What? After dispatching each foe, as well as certain key moments in the game, players are given the option to make a choice. Take the path of good, or give in to temptation and taste the dark side. Each decision ultimately affects the path of the game, as well as the outcome at the end. Web of Shadows tries to pull off a decent sandbox experience, but with repetitive missions and limited ways to progress through the main storyline, the only freedom you're really given is with the choice of being good or bad after each confrontation. One thing that Spider-Man games have always nailed is the feeling of swinging through a massive city. That hasn't changed here. Much like in Spider-Man 2, players can only use their web-slinging ability within the vicinity of buildings or other stable structures. This gives the game a moderate sense of realism. There's a great deal of depth to Spider-Man's abilities, but you can't get by using the same ones over and over. The moves available will shift depending on the situation, and each unique skill set works rather well and provides diversity for those who want it. You can also change between the standard Spider-Man suit and the Dark suit, which grants Spider-Man more strength, allowing him to hurl vehicles and deal more devastating blows. The standard suit allows for more agility and refined fighting. Each suit's abilities can be improved using a skill tree, and you'll need to master both in order to advance. Most fights are finished with button mashing, but some aerial sequences require a bit more skill and strategy. Tackling multiple enemies is a problem because toggling through them with the lock-on mechanic can be a chore. After all these years, swinging around town is still a lot of fun, but it only takes Web of Shadows so far. There's some depth to the combat, but it's rarely needed. It all becomes far too repetitive. Web of Shadows visuals are a mess. Severe tearing and clipping, sluggish frame rates, poor hit detection, and invisible objects are among the list of issues. Though the city sprawls in all directions, the buildings are repeated constantly. The vehicles, buildings, and street rabble all look far too crude.
Oh my god, you have a My Face page, don't you? Dork.
I do not.
Ah, you totally do.
Shut up, kid.
There's bad voice acting, and then there's really bad voice acting, and Web of Shadows falls into the latter category. Line delivery is erratic, the writing is atrocious, and some of the character voices are just flat out annoying, with Spider-Man's voice leading the charge.
Since you can't play nice, you get a timeout, mister.
Web of Shadows simply looks and sounds bad by today's standards. It's rare that such a great concept is sabotaged so savagely by poor execution, but Web of Shadows is a stark reminder that it takes more than a solid idea to make a great game. Spider freaks who haven't had enough of this same formula will find it to be a solid rental, but if your spider senses are tingling, we recommend picking up one of the old games from the bargain bin.
I'm not sure what's going on.
Look, I'm screw up, okay?
You think?